John Durham is he may not be an inventor, but he's the practitioner of the tortoise school of investigation. He is a plotter. He moves very deliberately. He only very slowly, like a tortoise, brings his neck out of his shell. Sometimes he pulls it back in. But I have to say that as someone who had worried that with Biden's election, Durham would essentially disappear, he has not disappeared. This is a kind of sure-footed tortoise. And from his filings, and this is a guy who doesn't have press conferences, not a lot of public brouhaha, he puts his findings in his legal briefs. And the latest one has a very revealing tidbit. It's only a tidbit, but it's a tidbit that makes you go, whoa. What he shows in the latest filing is that this guy, Sussman, and Sussman, let's remember, has been indicted for lying. This is a top lawyer with the Hillary Clinton campaign. But what Sussman was doing, Michael Sussman, is working with a technology executive. Who's a technology executive? Well, he's been sort of unmasked now. He's a news star, Senior Vice President Rodney Joffe. And also with a healthcare company called Spectrum Health. So here's the deal. Sussman, working with the technology executive, Joffe, and Spectrum Health, were spying on not just the Trump campaign. That was actually known. And we know that they were spying not to find collusion with Russia. They did not have any reason to believe there was. In fact, we now know there wasn't. What they were doing is to try and spin a narrative, a false narrative of collusion, but they needed something to point to, like, look at this, look at this. And so they were looking for that. And it turns out, according to Durham, that these people were spying not just on the Trump campaign, they were spying on Trump Tower, and they were spying on Donald Trump's Central Park West apartment building. And then, this is the crusher, they were spying on the executive office of the President of the United States. In other words, they were spying on Trump while he was in the White House. So think about it. You've got these external groups, and you might say, well, how can you spy on the White House? How do you even have that kind of access? Well, it turns out that the internet company, that's this news star, had a contract with the government in which they were providing resolution services for the White House's servers. And this contract was obviously a contract to protect the security and the equipment at the White House. But essentially what happened is this guy, Joffe, decided to use the access granted by that contract to do this kind of spying, to look for derogatory information on Trump. Now, I think we should let the significance of this sink in. You've got a rival campaign, and the leader of the rival campaign, which is a top lawyer. Now, I don't think that Michael Sussman would do all of this on his own. It's not like he decided, well, you know what, I'm just going to go rogue. I'm going to spy on the President of the United States. No, this is coming from the highest ranks of the campaign, and I would not be a bit surprised if it's coming from Hillary herself. At the very least, did she know about it? I mean, these were the exact same questions asked about Watergate. Not that Nixon ordered the burglary, he actually didn't, but he knew about it, and he made all kinds of efforts to cover it up. And it seems here that this is a plot hatched at the top levels of the Clinton campaign. Now, Trump is out with a statement saying, quote, that in an earlier time, these are crimes. I mean, there's an element of treason here because you're essentially violating the fundamental pact between the two parties that we are competitors in a fair fight. And apparently what's going on here is they were looking for a smear on Trump that would hand the election to Hillary. And Trump goes, this kind of treason would, quote, in an earlier generation, quote, would have been punishable by death. And, I think clinically that's probably true. We only have to look back to Hillary Clinton's actions to see what an absolute snake this woman is. I retweeted yesterday Hillary's statement from the campaign by her. It says, computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. This tweet, by the way, a few days before the election, October 31st, 2016. And she links to a statement from her then special policy advisor, Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan, now high official in the Biden administration. And she also links a little bit later in a second statement to an article in Slate magazine. Now, let's remember that the Clinton campaign planted the article in Slate magazine. Let's remember the Clinton campaign is the ones that tipped off the FBI to start this investigation, and the computer scientists were scientists working at Sussman's direction and under Joffe's direction to find these connections that they could then use to smear Trump. So the whole thing is rotten from start to finish. And to me, the only real question is, I'm not all that surprised by the fact that the media is pretending a ho-hum attitude about this. You can't look to the media. We've looked to the media in the past for cues about how we should feel about things. Is this a big scandal? Well, what's the press saying about it? Turns out that there are big scandals that the press says nothing about. And there are scandals that are no big deal. Or even bogus scandals. Oh, Trump and Russia bounties. And the press is all over it and screaming about it. So we've got to train our instincts not to pay attention to the press and not to take our emotional cues from the press, because these people are completely fake. They're propagandists for one side, and they're hostile propagandists to our point of view. And I sort of marvel here at Hillary's her constant ability to stay one step ahead of the posse. I really hope that Durham here, the tortoise, is willing to follow, perhaps methodically, but nevertheless unyieldingly, follow this path all the way to the top, so that the phrase "lock her up" goes from being a rally slogan to being a well-deserved reality.